Hello and welcome to Happy Cells and Souls. My name is Julie Powers and I am a licensed Zumba instructor and I'm a partner with the Juice Plus company. And my mission in life is to help people understand that life is better when they're dancing through it and that I want to inspire healthy living around the world. But my expanded mission is to create better health at the cellular level and more joy at the cellular level. Because I really believe that we just get this one body while we're here on earth and we need to take care of it. And we're supposed to be happy while we're here. We're supposed to be joyful. And so that's why I want to have these conversations with people and capture these moments in time to introduce you to some of the people that I've been privileged to meet throughout my life. I believe everybody has a story to share, and I want to share those people with you because I think that we can learn from everyone. Doesn't matter if we come from the same backgrounds, culture, religion, politics. It doesn't matter. If we go into conversations with an open heart, we're going to learn something. So my guest today is Catherine Thompson, and she was Catherine Harvey when I first met her back in 1991 when I lived in Melbourne, Australia, which is the American way to say it, and it's Melbourne, Australia, if you say it the right way. And I met her when I was there as part of my practice marriage. And so Catherine was one of the best things that came out of my about 15 months living in Australia, because we have had an ongoing friendship since then. And one of the best things about the whole pandemic is that we've been able to dance together. When I've been teaching my Zumba classes on Zoom, when my gym is not open for fitness classes, she's been able to participate with me. So, right, we were just talking about this the other day. Who would have ever thought back in 1991 when the internet wasn't even really a thing, right? We didn't really have email and everything was still very much old fashioned. And that one day we would be dancing together on a video conference, way around the world. So you've lived in Australia your whole life. You live in Melbourne, which is in Victoria, which is a state in the southern part of Australia. And yet you've been to the United States many, many times. You actually visited with me when I lived in Kansas City. And
Yep.
that was great. And one day you're going to get back here and come to the other part of the state where I live now. So, I'd love to just real briefly, because obviously COVID is in the news every single day, every single day. And the United States has had a vastly different approach to COVID than Australia has. And Victoria, the state of Victoria and the city of Melbourne have both really had very different approaches. So I was just wondering, because people have asked me, well, do you know people in other countries and how are they dealing with this? So can you just tell me, like, real briefly, what have you guys had to do where you live?
Yeah, look, it's been a pretty challenging year, has been for everyone. And, even though we're an island, with aeroplanes and people moving around as much as they do, we did get COVID. Probably, I was actually we went to Bahamas for my husband's 50th in January. And so we came back via New York and we landed on the 26th of January. And I don't even remember thinking much about COVID at that stage. So it really was quite a bit later that it all started to, sorry, my phone's going.
Technology.
Technology. I can never work out how to turn it off now. Sorry about that. But then we went into, there were more and more cases, and as it's happened in the States, just exploded. So we did go into lockdown at the end of March for, look, I'd say it's probably about 6 to 8 weeks. And look, I think that was sort of a little bit exciting almost. So that meant that we were allowed to go out. We were still allowed to go to supermarkets and stores, things like along those lines, but it didn't, it did help, but then we came out of lockdown and then we had issues again and the numbers just exploded again. So we went into a longer probably lockdown period And that was harder, I think, because we sort of knew wasn't quite so exciting anymore. And they introduced masks. So everyone had to wear a mask unless you had some sort of health reason why you couldn't. So and under 12s didn't, but everyone wore a mask everywhere and everyone did it. And I suppose we all knew that it was a matter of wear a mask, we'll get through this quicker. So they waited till, we had, I think, we had, look, I'm not even sure how many days of COVID free before they then started, they had a stage process. So they started relaxing it. And so there was about 4 different stages, and they opened different stages and weren't allowed to visit people, so that eventually you could go. And we also had a 5-kilometre radius, so no one could go past 5 kilometres. So, and they regularly, I didn't hear of many people being stopped, but some of the hot spots, such as down the beach, they would have patrols, like just checking your licence and things along those lines, but it wasn't too onerous. But you can only go within your 5-kilometre radius. You could go outside to exercise for an hour, and you could go to the supermarket. So that was sort of our big excitement. Woo, we're going to the supermarket. But you couldn't go with anyone else. You had to go on your own. So, but look, and I think everyone was a bit like, this is a bit overzealous, maybe it's a bit over the top, but, the numbers just started dropping and dropping and dropping. And then everyone sort of got a bit excited, like, oh my God, I think we're going to actually be on top of this thing. So I think everyone really, did their thing to get through it. And, I think it was a really nice sort of feeling amongst neighbours and things like that. I know that, I spoke to a couple of my elderly neighbours more than I'd probably spoken to, just to check that they were all okay with things. But, we got through it.
Right.
And, we've now been, sorry?
100 and something days of pretty extreme lockdown.
Yeah, I think it was something like 112 days. So it was a long time, and it kept the numbers were getting better. We're like, let us out. But they did it very slowly. But now pretty much things are pretty much back to normal. And as of last weekend, we only have to wear masks in closed surrounds like shopping centres, which you call malls, and supermarkets. But outside or eating restaurants.
Because you have you have no cases in Melbourne.
We have had 0 cases for 50 days now. And so now it's good timing because we're coming into summer, so it's probably helping as well. But also Christmas, so we can all go and see family. We can have up to 30 people at your place for Christmas, which is fantastic.
That is really great. Yeah, so you just mentioned you're going into summer. I know that when we spoke the other day, you said it was 35 degrees Celsius and it was hot outside. And I said, well, that's funny because it's 35 degrees Fahrenheit where I am because we're going into winter, you're going into summer. And, I always tease you because I want to know what it's like since you're 17 hours ahead of me, like what's going to happen tomorrow. You're already there. Because you've been to the United States multiple times and okay, so yes, you guys have what I think I said 25 million is your population in the whole country of Australia, and we have 330 million people in the United States. So big difference, and we're connected to other countries as well. But yes, we have different ways of approaching COVID, vastly different. But because you've been here so many times, can you tell me like some things that you've noticed about just the United States in general versus Australia? Because I know that when I lived there were so many things that were so brand new to me. Unfortunately, we speak the same language, we just have a different accent. And when I was working down there and I would answer the phone and I would say the name of the company and it was 3 words, I'd say, The Right Approach. And the people would say, are you Canadian or American? Like literally I would say 3 words and they would ask me if I was Canadian or American. So what have you noticed about differences in our countries?
Look, that's a really hard one. I think probably you might have noticed more differences being here than myself being there. But look, there are differences. I think just also from the scale of things, you're just so much bigger. So it seems like you're more densely populated. You have more varieties of stores and and products and probably more competition. So there, I think it's my experience is that it's costs of goods is probably cheaper there than it is here. But look, I think overall we're very similar. We're all got lovely people, and I think when it comes down to the bottom of it, like we're all human beings that just want the best for each other. We just want to be happy and healthy. But look, I suppose that the differences that we always find amusing is the things that people call differently. And look, I find that my kids call things sometimes, and I correct them. They'll say, "Can I have a cookie?" And I'm like, "No, that's a biscuit."
Right.
Or
something that I was really confused about when I was down there. Like people would say, "Would you like a biscuit?" And I'm like, "No, I don't really like biscuits very much." Wait, I love cookies, because this was way back before I was the new Julie that actually cared about what I ate. And way back then, I was eating anything and everything in front of me. But
yeah, and like lollies, we call it lollies as candy. So our English is probably more English. It's based on because that's where we essentially came from, convicts.
Right.
Although look, that's one thing I do think Australia has become extremely multicultural. So there's so many different ethnicities, which I think is a really positive thing, because people migrate here from all around the world, a lot of, troubled spots that Australia, and it probably, look, I'm not going to get into the politics side of it, but yeah, they do open their doors for, and look, I think that's important part of our culture, and I mean that we get lots of variety of food, and just exposure to different types of maybe beliefs, but yeah, look, that's a really, really tricky one about the differences. I'd say, well, what did you think the differences were when you?
I know that like we have very different ways that we approach the healthcare system. We've talked about that pretty much healthcare is free in Australia, and you've talked about the fact that you can go and get care immediately. It's completely different than the United States. And you were just telling me recently that college classes are more expensive right now if you're studying the humanities versus if you're studying science and math, because they need more science and math people, so they're making it cheaper. And I thought that was really interesting to have different prices based on what you're studying in school.
I didn't even realize that was the case. So I mean, I suppose maybe there, I don't know, is it if it's more expensive if it's a better college or something along those lines? Yeah.
As far as I know, unless it's changed drastically in the last few years and I just don't know about it, and maybe there are some schools that do have differences in prices based on what you're studying, but generally it's just a cost per credit hour, and it doesn't matter what that credit is. So I don't know. I think that's pretty interesting. I found that it was really interesting that most of the population in Australia obviously lives around the coast, because the middle part of Australia is just desolate.
Arid.
It's like a big
arid, desert, essentially, hot, very hot.
You have some of the most beautiful scenic ocean areas. The Great Ocean Road is just amazing, and so many people are outdoorsy. That's the one thing that I really noticed about Australia, and Melbourne. So I got to visit Adelaide and Sydney and Tasmania, which is actually a state in Australia. I didn't even know that before I went there, because I just knew that there was such a thing as a cartoon character called the Tasmanian Devil. And I didn't really even know where Tasmania was, but it's actually the southern state in Australia. It's a separate little island, right? But it's just so outdoorsy. People are outside all the time, walking everywhere, and really very physical. And that's a vast difference than people who are so sedentary and always driving in cars and not getting out and moving. So that was a big difference that I found. And I love, just some of the terms that you use for things like the lollies and the biscuits, but just, crikey and we'll go meet our blokes and, whatever. I can't even say it. I'm the worst. I'm the worst at that. But I know you guys don't celebrate Thanksgiving and
Yeah.
other very American holidays. But when I was there, we were with a huge group of Americans, so we got to celebrate Thanksgiving. But you were telling me about an American store that you've been able to go to get things when you've been celebrating or having an American party. What is it that you find in an American store in Australia?
Yeah, just some of the the candies are different names. We had a Thanksgiving because we had some Americans over for a conference from my husband's work. So we had a Thanksgiving. So I went there to get some decorations more so than foods, although we did buy grits because we heard about them in movies, but we'd never tried them. Yeah, I'm not sure that we'll buy them again, but that's okay.
That's pretty cool.
That was funny. But candy. But then having said that, a lot of that, like the Hershey's and other sort of things like that, the Kisses and cookies and cream, which is my kids' favourite candy. I used to like the Musketeers, was it, I think? Yeah. There's but yeah, it sells, it's all the, like the soda, which we call soft drink.
So what I'm hearing is all the things in the American store are all the crap things that are junk food here, and that what a lot of people live off of.
Yeah, it's all the processed things, I suppose, all the processed food that people maybe are craving or missing. But yeah, unfortunately, that's probably the side of America that's actually infiltrating to Australia, all those major corporations that, you don't even realise are there. But the other thing, going back to the college thing, the other thing that you were talking about, this is new. This is relatively new that they're trying to encourage science and maths, which actually works in my favour because my daughter's about to start university next year and she wants to do science. And my son has done business, and that's one of the ones that's increased in cost. But you don't have to pay. You don't actually pay up front. It's actually paid. It's like a debt, I suppose, but it's a government debt. So, and you pay gradually when you start earning over a threshold, and I think the threshold is 40,000, you pay. So like you pay back 1% comes from your pay to as you get higher. So, you're on 70,000 and
so wait a minute. You don't actually have to write a check to the school.
No, absolutely not. You pay. So it's not my debt. It's my kids' debt, I suppose, and they pay it back. It comes out of their pay when they start working. Like a very small percentage, like 2% comes out of your pay. So you barely notice it.
That's really very interesting. I had no idea that that's how that was.
Well, and look, they want to encourage people to be educated, I suppose. So, I mean, you can go to, education is free for primary school, secondary school. So we have, just two schools, 6 to 12 years old and then 13 to 18. And then you go to university if you decide to, which is like sort of 3 or 4 years. But, you can, essentially you don't have to pay upfront for any of those.
So if you never get a job that you're earning over the threshold, you don't pay it back?
You don't pay it back, correct.
Okay, that's really interesting. So you know what? We've actually been talking for 20 minutes already. And
wow,
it goes by in a flash. And there's so many things to talk about. I don't even know what else we could talk about. But I do remember that when I lived there, that one of the big things that you ate a lot of meat pies. That was like a big thing to have. Snacks were meat pie little things.
Yeah, it's a winter sort of thing. It's like pastry with meat in it. Yeah. And, but look, it's not overly healthy sort of thing. And it's probably an easy thing to grab and go. But other things are infiltrating, like sushi is probably more popular, or not more popular for me. It is just because it's but that's probably something you didn't see 10 years ago or when you were here.
Well, there I didn't pay any attention because I don't eat sushi.
Well, that's common. The hand rolls with rice and something in there, vegetarian.
Well,
Or,
you have a lot of Asian influence in Australia, though, because you're so close.
yeah,
Compared
yeah,
to us on the other side of the world, you've got all the Asian countries right there that you have a lot of
absolutely.
people that moved there from those countries.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
we had Vietnamese for dinner last night.
one
Oh,
thing
good.
that I love about where you live is you're so close to the tennis center where the Australian Open is held, and it's going to look so vastly different this year. And I'm going to get back to Australia. I'm going to come stay at your house, and I just want to
Absolutely.
thank you for sharing just a little slice and sharing your accent with my friends that watch this. And
No problem.
I think it's really fun to learn about other people and where they live, and again to remind us that we're all humans and we all live on this big planet together, and we all just need to look for the ways to find happiness and joy and love in everything that we do.
We're not that different, really.
No, you just talk funny.
You talk funny.
I do. All right. Love you, Catherine.
You too. Bye.